We're living through a time of incredible turmoil, chaos in the world. And one of the questions that is before us is, what is it that makes countries uninvestable? Okay? If you're interested in economics, finance, politics, if you're interested in like preserving your life savings, this question really matters, right? So the answer to this question, at a very simple answer, at least to begin with, and we'll delve into it more, is collapse makes countries uninvestable. Okay? And what I mean by that is that when we're looking to invest, and I don't just mean right on a personal level, though that's certainly true. I mean it in the terms of large pools of capital, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds, havens, this little hedge fund that I created for you guys. When we're thinking about investment at a serious level, what we're looking for above all is political stability, right? We're looking for a sense of social stability. We're looking for a sense of, that a country is a safe bet. First of all, before we get into the nuts and bolts of, is this stock going to perform? Or is this bond going to perform? Or is the currency going to perform? First of all, we're looking for safety. Okay? And obviously, in a world like this, it's getting harder and harder to come by. Now, I want to discuss this in a very specific context, okay? Which is a thing that really troubles me, okay? And the thing that really troubles me is, obviously, we have this effect going on now, right? Which is that capital is fleeing America because America is becoming an unsafe place to invest, right? Now, as I look into the future, right? And none of this is an idle political debate, right? This isn't about scoring points. The political debate is long over, okay? The world has decided capital is going to leave America. It's not a safe bet anymore, okay? So this isn't like American culture has these, right? These really tedious kind of like ongoing political debates. Is it really fascism? Blah, blah, blah. What? It's meaningless, right? It's BS. So it's not a political debate. This is about nuts and bolts, economics, finance, wealth, the future. When I look into the future, one of the things that really troubles me about America is that it has no theory how it got here, what here even is, or how to get out of this place. All right, now I'm going to tie that back with a few personal stories for you guys also, because I never tell you about my life, right? I never really tell you much. And maybe it's important and, I don't know, enlightening and sort of funny even to hear some of these stories of my own little misadventures, right? Because a lot of this stuff gets very heavy. So what do I mean by this? Well, countries have these things called narratives, right? Myths, stories that they tell themselves about where they are, where they're going, how they got where they are, etc. So way back when, right, it's a decade ago, I started predicting that America would have a fascist implosion, right? And we talked about that in previous videos. Some of the ways that my model of the world helped me predict that. All right, now, what happened next when I began issuing these predictions, right? Don't forget, I was Harvard Business Review's top columnist, and I was on the speaking circuit, and I published all my books, and typical like right stuff for that kind of right career. So what happened next? Something very surprising, which was that I found myself instantly blacklisted. Okay. Sort of, you can go at it and chuckle with me, right? So there I am, and I'm a relatively young dude. I'm a brown dude, and I'm telling America, right, like all the like American elites who I was surrounded by, right, Harvard, Stanford guys, venture capitalists, blah blah blah, political bigwigs. Look, you're at serious risk of a collapse. So you can imagine what their reaction was to me saying that, right, like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, which is that they swiftly blacklisted me, right? They didn't want to hear it. It was too dangerous for them to grapple with. Now, I'm not saying that so you cry for me, right? That's not the point at all. In some sense, it was a good thing for me because I don't really care. I'm not like those guys, right? And you know it. Those of you who've read my writing, I'm nothing like those guys. So what happened was that I was able to predict this on the basis that, and we discussed this in the last couple of videos, right? Today, American incomes as a share of the economy are back to Great Depression era levels, right? It's a very important fact, right? So using facts like that, I was able to predict that this collapse was going to happen. Now, what happened was that instead of taking my research and thinking seriously, and at this time I was heading up, one of the world's biggest corporations and doing serious research, right? One of the world's largest projects into economics and finance. Now, in America, what happened was that instead of understanding my thinking, and I wasn't alone in predicting this, right? Like there were many other people who were talking about this at the time, and you know who they are, right? You follow many of them and have been for years, just like you follow me, right? So what happened was that theory, which was that economic decline leads to fascist authoritarian implosion, was swiftly rejected by America's elites, right? So guys that really have no business rejecting serious intellectual thinking, right? Intellectual work, actual research, okay? So guys like journalists, pundits, the talking head kind of class, they're not serious thinkers, right? I mean, they're not, right? So, I mean, I'm not trying to be insulting, but let's face it, right? Some of them are dumb asses. That's 100% correct. But as a group, right? They haven't devoted their lives to this in the way that those of us who are serious thinkers have. So we got the degrees, we did the research, we did the field work, right? This is serious scholarship. So those guys, not having done any of this, their job is just to opine, right? They have no skin in the game. I've always had skin in the game, right? When I was running one of the world's largest corporations, now I set up this hedge fund for you guys. So my money has always been where my mouth is, okay? Those guys' job is to opine, okay? That's Snowy, by the way. Those guys' job is to opine. And everything becomes a debate. Everything becomes a controversy to those guys. So the reason I'm teaching you all this is because to this day, America has no theory of how it got here. So if you read the New York Times or the Atlantic or any one of these very anodyne publications, right? That are always both sidesing and whatabouting things. And maybe some of them are doing better than they were before. The Atlantic is doing a little bit better than it was before. But there's no theory as to how we got here. So if I ask these guys, well, how did America get here? They will have no real theory of it, right? And so my theory of it is crystal clear, right? And I've taught it to you in previous videos. And like I said, this is not a political debate, right? Havens is crushing, right, the market because the theory is correct. The second thing that concerns me is that there's no agreement on where here is, okay? My model of the world and of America said economic stagnation and decline are going to produce fascist authoritarian implosion, okay? And so where here is for me is very simple. This is a social collapse, okay? And remember the point that we're discussing. Collapse makes societies uninvestable, okay? So this is where America is now, collapse, all right? If we ask these guys, this class of people who unfortunately are like America's gatekeepers, right? They tell society how to think and what to think about, okay? It's an unfortunate thing because they don't have a consensus or an agreement that this is a place of implosion or that this is a place of collapse. A lot of them are still debating whether this is really fascism. It's a dumb-ass place to be, right? Like, it's fucking idiotic. Pardon my French, it's fucking idiotic, right? At this point, to be asking ourselves, is America collapsing? Is this fascism? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, look around, right? A blind man was just left for dead, right? You read this horrifying story. I'll make another, maybe I'll write a post about it, right? Left for dead, blind, disabled guy in sub-zero temperatures, dropped off miles away from his house. Couldn't speak English, okay? So there's no consensus from these fools on where here is. And they're still kind of going around in circles trying to figure out where the hell we are. Dude, where the hell America is so crystal clear obvious to the rest of the world, right? That's why money is pouring out, all right? So without a theory of how we got here, we don't even know where here is. And that's the kind of foolery that has taken place in American discourse, in American thinking. Not really thinking at all, right? And it makes me sort of irritated. You can hear it in my voice because it's stupid, right? It's a dumb-ass way of looking at the world, all right? Now, third point, where are things going in the future? Well, if you don't have a theory of how you got here and you don't know where here is, you don't know what to do about it in the future either, right? So let's go back to this chart that I've been discussing with you guys. I call it the most important chart of the 21st century. American incomes are back to Great Depression era levels as a share of the economy. Now, that also tells us something, right? To get out of the Great Depression, what did we need to do? America needed the most fundamental reconstruction it had since the Civil War, right? The New Deal, which was not just like, it's not just some small thing and we send people to dig with shovels. It was much more than that, right? We reconstructed government. Fundamentally, we set up all these new agencies, Department of Labor, Bureau of Economic Analysis, blah, 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 blah. So New Deal was a fundamental reconstruction of institutions and of investment, okay? Now, if you understand that incomes are back to Great Depression era levels, it also implies that America is going to need a reconstruction on that scale, on that level. All right, got me? But we all know politically that reconstruction is so far off the charts, off the table, right? The GOP is sort of in love with fascism, and the Democrats are just sort of like, right out there like flailing in the water, like they don't know what to do and they're not doing anything, right? So no theory of how we got here, no theory of where here is, means no insight into what needs to be done in the future to fix this mess. And all of that is how a country really becomes uninvestable, okay? So what we're talking about here are paradigm failures, breakdowns in thinking, and a sort of, okay but mediocre way to think about wealth and economics and finance and investment is to say, well, what makes something uninvestable is, that's risky. That's true, 100% true. A much better and more accurate and deeper way to think about it is that this thing, whether it's a company, whether it's a country, just has no clue anymore, right? It's just so badly managed, so badly run, that it doesn't have a theory of where it is, how it got there, or where it needs to go next, all right? And you can apply, if you think about that in terms of companies, it becomes much more intuitive. We're not used to thinking about that in terms of countries, especially in terms of America, right? But that's what the world is beginning to see, okay? And that's why sort of, American assets are now at severe risk and the world is running away from them, okay? So what really makes countries uninvestable are these failures of intellect, these failures of vision, these failures of insight and understanding. And one of the great tragedies in America is this class of jokers and clowns has taken over the job of thinking, okay? And they don't let people think clearly about much anymore through their dumb-ass columns and their dumb-ass sort of like, I don't know, whatever it is, cable news shows or whatever the fuck, man. Like, it's stupid, right? At this point, to not understand how America got here, not even to understand where here is like an act of intellectual negligence that borders on like the homicide of a society, all right? You can quote me on that, by the way. All right, that's a lot for one video, okay? I will talk to you guys soon. Any comments, questions, just leave them below. Thank you.